Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Ole Consulting monthly PM Roundtable. My name is Ade Adeyemi. I'm the CEO at Ole Consulting. If you're joining us for the first time, Ole Consulting is a management consulting firm specializing in IT professional services in the areas of staffing, training, and project delivery services. So essentially, we do connect IT professionals to opportunities within the industry. We also provide training and employment placement services for individuals that are looking to get into the fields of project management and business analysis. Our mandate for the PM Roundtable is to create a unique platform for our IT professional community to network, share information, discuss best practices, and present opportunities for career growth. Essentially, our goal is to raise leaders, and we definitely hope today's roundtable will help further that agenda. Our topic for today's roundtable is around the importance of storytelling for professional success. We do have some exciting panelists on the call today. I do want to ask that all the panelists please do turn on their cam at this point. We're going to be getting into this conversation. Before we get into the conversation, we'll start with some introductions and for everyone to get to know the panelists and their wealth of experience that they bring to this conversation today. The first panelist we're going to be introducing is Rashida Geddes. Rashida, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming. Okay, so Rashida, if you can maybe just give the folks on the call a brief overview of your background, let them know who you are, who's on the call, the wealth of your wealth of experience. Briefly, that'll be great.
Sure. So as the bio that Ade has on the screen shows, I'm on a mission to really help talent get out of their own way, cut through the noise, and really bring clarity to their career and life goals. As a career and leadership coach, as a senior talent leader, and as someone who actually also does work in television, I am really here to support Gen Z and millennials really take that next level in their own career, and to do that through their own voice, and really leveraging their voice and understanding the power of their experiences, and really leveraging that for their own career success. And I've had an opportunity to speak on many different roundtables. I've had an opportunity to also keynote speak at Harvard. I've had an opportunity to speak at Concordia, at McGill, and work with companies like Meta and HP in consulting work. So I really do enjoy the work that I'm doing, and I'm really helping to bring, the voice of the next generation to life.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you so much, Rashida. We're really lucky to have you on the call with your wealth of experience, and I'm pretty positive that the audience will benefit from your wealth of experience and things that you have to share today. Thanks again, Rashida. We'll move on to the next panelist. Next panelist that we'll be introducing is Kakali Borua. Welcome, Kakali.
Thanks, Adi. Thanks for having me here. Hi, everyone. I'm Kakali. Before I actually introduce myself, I want to thank everyone who have joined us today. It's like Saturday noon, nice, lovely day, but you decided not to go out and be with us. So I'm really excited, and I hope that this session will be of some help to all of you. About me, I have been in the field of marketing, communications, and public relations for more than a decade now. And storytelling, the topic that is today. So being a communication professional, storytelling has been a very integral part of my professional journey throughout. I've got a diversified industry experience, like I worked in aviation, defense, lifestyle, entertainment, education, banking, technology, and so on. Currently, I'm working as a communication manager in DD in their cloud engineering and delivery. Like some of you in the audience, I'm also an immigrant, and actually a fairly new one. I came to Canada in the middle of pandemic, so you can imagine. So I'm very excited. I'm looking forward. I'm ready to share my experience, my stories, some tips and tricks that I know about storytelling. And also feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, reach out to me. I'll be happy to help. Thanks.
Okay, excellent. Well, thanks so much, Kakali, for that introduction. Again, this is part of the story that we're trying to tell to understand that there are professionals out there, and similar to folks on the call, Kakali is new in Canada and she's been able to navigate. Again, we'd love to hear from you, Kakali, as far as how you've been able to navigate through the new job market or new industry or new environment. How do we use the power of storytelling to get us through things again? And last but not the least, we will introduce our final panelist, Shivaram Chavari. Hi, Shivaram.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome here. Myself, Sivaram Javli. I've been into the IT industry for the past 20 years. I'm a leader in data platforms. Worked in various parts of the world, like starting from UK, Australia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Canada, US, Switzerland. So residing in Canada for the past 8 years now. I'm also an immigrant, as Kakali said, I'm not born raised here. So welcome to this and storytelling, especially. It's been the success path of mine, where I've been I don't know, I learned it over my career, or somebody taught me. I can't say that, but right now I see that is the majority of my success contributor. If I have to select some attributes that have contributed to my success, 70-80% of my success is with my storytelling capability. I'd like to take this opportunity to help mentor and coach you people who are very young into the industry, coming with an open mindset to learn, and enable you at this platform which Addy is providing, which is really great for you guys to have this. I'll do my best to coach you, mentor you, or answer your questions. I want it to be more dialogue than I speaking or Addy speaking or Kakali speaking. I want more questions from you than the specified questions that Addy has told me. Right. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for that introduction, Shivaram. And again, we're excited to have you on the call. By the way, Shivaram has a wealth of experience in project, product, and business analysis. An agile coach. We will be hearing from you. We'd love to hear from your perspective in terms of, because we know a lot of IT professionals on the call today with that background. How can we evoke storytelling to engage stakeholders to get the kind of result that we're looking for when it comes to projects and delivery, and again in other aspects we're going to be talking about. So we'll move on. I guess we've done the introduction. At this point, we want to get into the conversation around storytelling. How do we get into the conversation? What are some of the things we're going to be talking about? Some of the key talking points that we're going to be covering today. We'll look at how can I use storytelling during interviews? I know a lot of people want to hear that. How do you engage hiring managers? How do you get them to, how do you win them over? How can I use storytelling to engage stakeholders during presentations? We talked about that, what Shivaram might be, giving us from that perspective of agile product, business analyst. And we're also looking at how we can use storytelling to evoke empathy and influence cultural fit. So bottom line here is how can we get our message across in every situation using storytelling? We will exit the presentation mode at this point, and we'll get into the conversation with the panelists. So at this point, I do want to ask all the panelists to please turn on your cam, and as we get into this conversation, I'm going to add myself to the spotlight. Yep, perfect. So let's get into this conversation. There's a lot to unpack here, and I'm going to start with you first, Rashida. There's a lot to unpack here, but to get us started, let's get to understand what is storytelling and why is it important for professionals?
Yeah, so storytelling happens and exists in so many different forms. But when it comes to your career, what I often tell my clients and the people that I'm working with is that it really is your career journey and the culmination of the experiences that you've had that have brought you to where you are today and that have brought you to the position that you're interested in or the space that you're interested in. It's a culmination of the values that you also bring as well as your strengths. So it really is that compelling career story that really ties in all of the experiences that you've had, all of the values that you have, and what you're truly looking for in your own career. And that's weaved in there is that story. It is those experiences that are brought together.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rashida. And it's interesting. What for me, the key points you mentioned is compelling. When you look at storytelling, it's got to be compelling. It's just storytelling for the sake of storytelling. Can you speak a little bit about the, how people can make their story more compelling, and again, the right choice of words in terms around the compelling nature of storytelling?
Absolutely. So we know that emotions are something that everyone has, right? When you are talking to a recruiter, when you are talking to a hiring leader, you're not talking to a robot. You're talking to a human. And humans, we often connect emotionally. We resonate with stories. We resonate with each other and experiences that we may have all had or have felt. So that compelling story for me and for many other people that I've worked with is really the opportunity to share with them how you've come through, right? And oftentimes it's those threads of those challenges that you've experienced, how you've overcame those challenges, and what has brought you to this point in your own career. Those things really do stick with hiring leaders. I can tell you, as someone that has interviewed hundreds, if not thousands, and have looked through thousands of resumes, the stories that really do connect with me when I am speaking with candidates, the candidates that I remember even to this day, 5 years later, are those that really share with me one of the reasons why they were interested in the company, and it was brought to them, by something as simple as it was when I was working in banking. For some candidates, this was the first bank that welcomed me when I first came to this country. So I had this initial connection with this bank, and they helped my family get on our feet. So some of these kind of stories, these experiences that people have gone through, are really what resonates with me. And when I'm, speaking in a group afterwards on the different candidates, it's those stories that do stick out, and those candidates that we often bring forward and say, what about this person? What do you think about giving them a shot or giving them a chance? So for me, compelling story is bringing in those experiences, but not being afraid to share your challenges, to share what you've been through, but also to share how you overcame them and why you are a better person because of it today.
Oh, excellent. Well, thanks so much, Rashida. I think, and it's interesting when you talk about storytelling, the structure of storytelling is also important, and how we put the story together, the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story, and ensuring that, again, it's compelling and we're able to get our message across. We're going to keep talking about the concept of engaging hiring managers, interviewing. My next question is to you, Kakali. How best can one harness the power of storytelling in an interview session?
Yeah, before I actually go into that, I just want to add something, what Rashida said to that, okay? She said that somebody told her that, it was their first bank and that she still remembers. You won't believe the same thing happened to me. Like, in my interview with TD, my manager asked why TD. And I was very honest. I told them, you know what? The first bank I went in Canada was TD, and I loved the environment. I loved how they welcomed me, how, the soft music was, being played and everything. And I was like, if I get a chance to work in TD, it'll be amazing. And I can so relate to what you said, Rashida. So having said that, storytelling can be a very important part of any interview, but we need to keep in mind that we cannot use the elements of storytelling in all the questions. Like, in an interview, certain questions are very straight, right? Where you cannot just, go in the storytelling elements. But there are a couple of questions where the storytelling elements can help, like, situational questions. Tell me about a situation that, happened to you, or something like, tell me about yourself. So those kind of questions can be answered very well if you use the storytelling elements. Now, how will you use that? So I would say first, have a framework ready, because our thoughts, we know what all to say, but sometimes we fail how to deliberate, right? We are so much full of thoughts. We go on and on. We don't know where to stop. So I feel when you are using storytelling elements in an interview, you should have a framework ready. You should, put your thoughts in an order. There should be a flow, like, how you start, how you end up with the right message, how you deliver the right message, and also have a starting statement, like which is like a trailer of a movie, like, give an idea to the interviewer what to expect from your answer, what to expect from your story, right? Then also time yourself, because in an interview we have a limited time, right? And you want to show the best in you. You don't want to miss out some important information that might be useful for the interview, right? So time yourself, decide what you're gonna say, have a flow, have a key message ready, prepare and practice out loud, because you should. That's what I used to do. I used to say it out loud, record it. I used to look for opportunities where I can improve and stuff like that. And most importantly, when you if you're using a story in an interview, take time to make it work for the interviewer. Connect. That is the most important part. Like Rashida said, the people who are interviewing you also have emotions. So when you put the storytelling elements, it can connect you with the interviewer, and trust me, it really helps.
Well, thank you so much, Kakali. I think again you're very spot on in terms of when it comes to storytelling, and you find that folks get into an interview room and you may not come across this person again, and you just have 30 minutes to prove yourself. How can I tell that story? How can I introduce myself in a way that I'm able to get my message across, and like you said, to connect. I think it starts from the beginning. You give people an idea, and you mention trailer, the synopsis of what it is they're going to be getting from what message you're trying to pass, and then during the process. One thing that you also mentioned I like is the fact that practice. I do practice myself. Prior to this roundtable, actually practice some some of the things I was going to talk about is really important, because practice allows it to become part of what you're going to talk about. Even though when you get into the room, it may not necessarily flow the same way you practice, but the good news about practice is there's a certain level of flow and knowledge base that you have an idea in terms of what you want to talk about in the story. You'll be able to get there. Thank you so much. We will move on to Shivaram. Shivaram, question to you is, now we talked about interview. Let's assume this individual, maybe has gone through interviews, they've gotten the job, all well and good. Now let's talk about what's the importance of visual narratives in storytelling. What tools are best to use for visual narratives? Are there any tools? That are audience specific? And keeping in mind, when looking at visual narratives, we're talking about presentation, engaging stakeholders. Can you speak to us about the importance of visual narratives and the tools that may be used, and even if some may be audience specific?
Yeah, I'll come to the answer. But before that, storytelling has started in everybody of your life when you are 1 or 2 years of age. Your dad, your mom, your brother, your uncle, your aunt, somebody has started telling you a story, right? Like, how did it impact you? Like when they were saying it, you never understood when you were a kid, right? Like they used to show you a storybook where there used to be some pictures. Look at this elephant walking. Look at this tiger chasing, right? Like that is how you got connected. This is an elephant. This is a tiger. That's the importance of a visual, like that is what created some impact on your mind. So storytelling essentially has a purpose, right? Like you need to meet the purpose. The story that was told to you when you were 2 year old or 1 year old was to please you and put you to bed. The story you say at an interview is to crack your job. Or the story you tell it to your business is to win your business. Or to explain the business what you are going to do once you won the business. What's the next deal, right? That is where it starts in that. So again, coming straight to the question, right? What is the importance of storytelling? Right from the interview to your business narration or carrying your use case to the business, talking to your business partners, stakeholders, everywhere, the narrative has come into the picture. Maybe you'll be using a PPT once you are into the business, but mostly for you being new to the industry, then the sort of practice that I've been seeing here when I'm hiring like a from the universities is what I'm doing is a whiteboarding with the students or the fresh interview graduates, right? Like mostly like if I'm going with them, I'm giving them an opportunity of whiteboarding. If at all it is a face to face, I just give them a marker, otherwise a Zoom whiteboarding. So while whiteboarding, what is the importance, right? Like you'll be writing all around, or there is a purpose of it, right? Like start with when you're showing a narrative, when you are about to show a narrative, when you are given a whiteboard or a presentation, the first thing of the narrative or the presentation, it should be crisp. The second thing is it serving your intent? First question yourself, am I doing it crisp? Am I doing it in 3 slides or 4 slides? Nobody has a 50 slide deck to be presented, and the other person will have time or may lose interest. That, like, if you want to present a 50 slide deck, that is our next round or the second round or the third round, once there is a time allocated to you. But within the stipulated time, when you have to prove yourself, your narrative is so important to be precise and point oriented, right? Like if you have to talk about a concept, pick up the right narrative with which that you have to start, and you have to have a framework in your mind, right? Like what you have to by the end. Like I have started at this point, by the end I'm going to conclude here, and you traverse in a way that is the framework that you make it in your mind, right? Like slide 1, I said like what it is. Slide 2, how it is. Slide 3, where do I go with this. Slide 4, what do you get with this. Slide 5, conclusion with questions. There ends the story. It's the simple way with the narratives that helps you. Narratives often help you that you don't forget what you have to say, right? Like it's a pointer, right? Like you might have 10 number of n number of things, not 10, to present, right? Like out of which you picked up 5. In a hurry, you may lose this super important one thing. The narrative helps you to point out that one thing that might slip out of your mind, or somebody might disturb you in between asking a question, so that you don't deviate from your focus. You complete all your 5 within the stipulated period of time. This is how you can start. And the visual narrative creates an impression on the person that is listening to you, as it has created in your childhood, right? Like the impression, like, like almost a crayon sketch can create what a system does, right? Like a system flow. System A talks to system B talks to system C, you want to say, but system C backfeeds system A. If you draw 3 boxes and connect the arrows in the backward, that will create a solid impression that what it does than what you have to say more. The visual itself conveys half of your message. The rest of the half is how you present yourself and how you navigate through that visual, so that people are not lost.
Well, excellent. Well, thanks so much, Shivam. There's a lot to unpack from that. The framework, having a framework is important, and even those visual representations help with getting the message across. And I'm sure as you're talking, system A, system B, some of our technical folks on the call can relate when you talk about the different process flows. Interesting. Lots to cover here, guys. We do strongly recommend that, folks, please, we want to hear from you. Send your questions to the chats. We want to send your questions to the panelists. By saying, Tikali, you want to add a comment?
Yeah, just it's so nicely explained by Shivaram. I just want to add one thing. The impact of visual elements is that it gives the maximum recall value. Like for example, when a child is knowing learning new words and all, like for example, apple. When you say apple, they might not spell it correctly, but they create a visual of an apple, right? Same goes with us. Like that's why probably we have logos. Like we might not remember the name, but when we see the logo, we know what it is, right? So visuals have a very strong impact in our minds, and it gives us the maximum recall value, I feel.
Excellent. Well, thanks for adding that, Kakoli. This is exciting. We will move on to the next question. Next round of questions.
I have one more point. As she said, I would like to add one more thing here. Right, like when it comes to, I'm not a brand freak, but I want to give you another example. As she said, Nike, when it comes to you, when you see the symbol, it comes to your mind. But the visual is very important. The logo you make or the visual you make is very important. Can anybody draw the visual of Reebok? No, it's impossible. Right. It's really not possible near to drawing as well, right? Like Accenture, the brand, it's just a greater than symbol. You can draw it. Deloitte, you can never draw it. I'm telling you, like the visual or the logo is very important so that it creates a brand and an impression of you. Thanks for bringing that point of the logo.
No problem, Shivaram.
Okay, excellent. Well, we'll have it fun here, guys. We're still waiting to hear from the participants. Please send in your questions, but we're going to go to you, Rashida. Rashida, now we want to talk about, it's a new age right now. Networking, social networking is important in today's world. And I'm speaking LinkedIn, Instagram, all the different social networks. How best can we get traction to our profiles on professional platforms such as LinkedIn, using storytelling as a tool?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Ade. First thing I would say is, because each platform is different, you have to know what audience are you trying to engage with and where are they going to be most likely, right? If you're talking about the professional world, then we know that LinkedIn is where a lot of professionals are. And I'm sure in your network, you have people of all different backgrounds. So what background or what area are you most interested in really appealing to? So, you mentioned, Ade, that many of the people online may be IT professionals, right? So maybe you're really trying to capture the attention of IT professionals in your network, those that can connect you with stakeholders that may have opportunities, right? So the first thing is know that you want to connect with that specific audience. You also want to know what resonates with that audience, right? What kind of stories or experiences do they want to know or hear about? What kind of tools maybe that you have knowledge of that they may be interested in. So get to know not only who your audience is, but what they value and what resonates with them when it comes to your experiences and the things that you have to bring to the platform. And then make sure that you are sharing regularly, right? You could be sharing what you are learning. You could be sharing what you've gone through. You could be sharing your experiences. But in that sharing, you're going to want to make sure that you talk and speak to not only the highs, but also the lows. Oftentimes we know that when people share the highlight reels, it gets likes, but it doesn't necessarily get the comments, right? It doesn't get them that engagement in all cases. It may be a congrats, or other people may be really happy for you, but it stops there. But when you have a challenge that you've gone through, maybe you've learned a language and it was super hard at first, and you had so many challenges in the beginning. Maybe you even failed, an online boot camp for that language, but you persevered, you were resilient, you kept going, and you finally were able to overcome that. And here's what you learned. Those kind of experiences can resonate with people online because they speak to your vulnerability. they speak to you opening up and being honest, and really sharing those experiences that that sum up who you are today, right? And it shows those skills. It shows that resiliency. It shows that you are able to, you know, fail at something, but you didn't give up and you kept going. So for me, many of the posts that I often share on LinkedIn that have really resonated have been those that really connected. My audience is Gen Z and millennials. So oftentimes I am speaking to how they may be feeling through the job search process, or speaking to my own experiences of how I had, when I was in their shoes, the challenges that I faced in trying to get that first job out of university, or trying to transition into a different area or space in my career. And those posts often resonated and got people, you know, messaging me afterwards and saying, I really enjoyed that post. That experience was something that I've been through. And the tips that you've shared, the tools that you've shared, right? The advice, the solution that you've provided has been really helpful. So make sure that you're sharing your experiences, that you're sharing the highs and lows, that it's really speaking and resonating with your audience, but ultimately that you share what you've learned from that experience, whether it's tips or insights or advice that they can take moving forward.
Well, thanks so much, Rashida. I think this is really important because social networking is extremely important in today's world. And I tell folks, you can go out there and look for jobs and you're trying to navigate your career. Your presence online is extremely important because those opportunities might come to you. And like you said, you need to start with identifying what your target audience is, who you're trying to communicate to, and what are their interests. You know, get those things. And one thing that stuck out to me is the fact that being, you know, vulnerable is something I feel a lot of people are very uncomfortable about. But I think that's what shows the human side of us, and that's where our story connect with people's emotions, because they can relate to that. Because when you think about what sort of struggles or challenges anyone's going through, there are other people going through that struggle. And it's really important that people know that. Thanks so much for sharing. We will go next to you, Kikali. Kikali, now this piece here, I find it very interesting, very important, and it has to do with culture. You know, when you look at folks coming into a new environment, into a new country, a lot of internationally trained professionals, a lot of international students. How does storytelling influence cultural fit or acceptance when one finds themselves in a completely different cultural setting? And this could also apply to someone, you know, in a new work environment or in a new country where there's this cultural shift. How do you respond to that, Kakali?
Thanks, Adi, for asking me this question, because this is something I have probably gone through very recently, right? As I said, I moved to Canada like a year and a half back. And I think for everyone, it's not about only immigrants. It's like Rashida said, like, you know, if we move to a different, you know, job or different area of work, then also we find ourselves in a situation where probably we're landing in a very different cultural zone, right? So, and I would say storytelling definitely helps, because the most powerful element of storytelling is connection. It helps you to make connection with people. We are not robots. We are not machines. We are human beings, right? And when by communicating a message through a nice narrative, you are actually humanizing it, right? The stories, you know, let us share information in a way that brings in an emotional connection with your audience, with the person that you are communicating with. And also, when we talk about us, when we tell our stories, it helps the other person understand where we come from, what our culture looks like. It gives a sense of, you know, empathy. And the person when you are using storytelling to tell about your background, where you come from and everything, the person can actually visualize. The person can actually relate to you, right? And another most important thing is that, you know, by storytelling, you can actually start a conversation. That's the beginning of building a relation, be it in your community, be it in your workspace, be it in your, you know, college, or for students, I'm talking about for your college. So this is how a storytelling can help. This is the power of storytelling. It connects, it lets you start a conversation, and it gives an emotional and space where you actually relate to the other person.
Interesting. Well, thanks so much, Kakali. And it's interesting as you're saying, you're talking about this storytelling and connecting with people, the emotions, and also allows the other person get to know you better. It's about bringing our full self to the table. And when you think about immigrants, professionals, often when we come into a new country, a new space, we often want to blend in and try to integrate and quietly just get through without necessarily showcasing where we're from. And in some cases, we find ourselves to be isolated, or we're isolating ourselves and we feel like the environment may not be conducive. But I think when we become authentic and try to bringing our full self to the table, telling our story and realizing that people will show empathy, and that empathy, they will know you. And when you're in the room, and we're having this conversation, we know where Kakul is coming from, we know what our background is, and we can bring that fullness of the culture, which makes the team a little more dynamic. Thanks so much, Kakali. This is exciting. We do have, I think we're getting questions from the audience. We're gonna go to Shivaram, and then we'll address a question. I believe there's a question here about how do you overcome anxiety during an interview. We're gonna get to that, but I'm gonna go to Shivaram. Shivaram, we're talking about culture. Now we're switching now from culture, into a different conversation around stakeholder engagement, storytelling. What role does storytelling play in product lifecycle? And now we're talking product management, and we're talking about from ideation to go to market. What role does storytelling play in the product lifecycle?
Product life cycle it starts at the conceptualization of the product, right? Like the idea of the product comes from a sponsor. Somebody has to sponsor for the product to come into the market. Be a business, like currently, I can take an example of retail where I worked for. So I work for, many of you know that retail, right? Like I work for October's very own brakes company, right? Like everybody knows brake. That's why I took that example. So the product, right? Like what they make is expensive clothing for the kids, or for teenagers, which are mostly behind that. Like it's an expensive clothing. But also the conceptualization starts with the sponsor, right? Like for the sponsor to start the concept as well, there are product owners who will be going to the business and say like, look, this product in the market, we do some kind of product analysis and grid analysis on the existing products of the market. So like the seasonal product, say suppose the next season is winter, we are going with thick hoodies. What are good in the market? What is going fine? What is going well? We know as the product owners and the business system analysts or the business analysts, we do some market research. It starts from there. Go to the sponsors or the vice president or the executive vice president of the hoodies department. Go to them and say like, hey, these are available. There starts your product storytelling. These are available in the market. This is doing well. This is the season. Why we have to make it? Who are our competitors? What is the pricing? What is the margin? At the end of the day, business needs a profit. Everybody thinks only about that, but business needs fame, name, and value in the market. Sometimes they don't really mind shedding few dollars to sell the other product based on this, right? Like you never know, never shy of anything before presenting. That's the whole concept of a product, right? Like the product may be super successful, the product may be a super failure. Business is ready to take both. Unless you present it, no idea is a bad idea in terms of a product. it doesn't just mean that being a product evangelist or a product owner or like a product lifecycle manager, you're going and presenting it to the business is right into the market. There are certain levels of evaluation of that of your idea that will go through. Everybody's skin is in the game. Don't worry that you are alone, right? Like you are not completely accountable. There is a RACI matrix for this. Hope you all know what is a RACI matrix: responsible, accountable, consulted, informed. There are people in the organization who are all part of this decision. So put your product story to the business sponsor is the first thing. As I said, you like the levels of the story that you put it at. Once it's approved by the business sponsor, right? Next, product actualization. This is product visualization. The next thing is actualization, right? Like in the actualization, there is a lot of scope of the product owner because you know what the business sponsor wants. As a product owner, you interact with the business analysts, business system analysts. I'm talking from mostly from the IT world, right? Like developers in the non-IT world, maybe like if you're making a t-shirt, right? Like in the non-IT world, right? Like if you're making a t-shirt, a developer is to design it on the CAD, CAM, whatever you use, the designing software is still the developer. But engaging a vendor to make your sample, right? Like the guy who really stitches it, right? Like the designer, you go to the designer, engaging with them, running a daily stand-up, where it is going, getting the sample. As a product owner, as you are satisfied, show the sample to the business sponsor. Business sponsor is satisfied. It's a lot of back and forth in the product life cycle management. It's always a spiral thing, right? Like you go, you take it, you go back to the business, satisfy them. Usually, it used to be a waterfall model earlier, wherein the business says, the product owner goes to the business, takes the approval, takes it, goes to the business analyst, designs it, puts it into that, and after that, like the business is like, this is not what I wanted. That's why there is a life cycle management, and it's a spiral model these days. There is a bit of back and forth. In that way, in that back and forth, agile into the practice has cut down a lot of it has brought in a lean practice. A lean practice is eliminating the waste. Am I doing too much of documentation on this? Am I conducting too much of meetings on this? If I'm conducting a meeting in a kitchen, I need the chef, not the janitor, right? It is in the kitchen. I need the chef and the person who eats it, not the janitor who cleans my washroom. So including right people into the right meetings. All the things have come up with agile into the product management. And the product lifecycle is managed in such a way that end of the day, the product out in the market is what the product visualized. At least what it makes in the market is always a prediction. There are analytics, learning, artificial intelligence on top of that, what it could do. There is modeling on that, like which can predict a bit. Not all the models are successful, but few of them are successful because I'm into the data space. I see it day in, day out, right? Like we predict a lot, like not everything is successful, but like it's again a learning to the system as well. System is as good as a human. You do mistakes, you learn from them. If the system does it for the second time, system is useless. If human does it for the second time, human has a third time, system will be kept apart, right? Like that is the thing. So the product lifecycle management is just how you manage or you buy your products at your home. You try a product first. What you do, like you try it, like in Canada, like you have this advantage. I'm from India. You don't have an option of trying. You bought it. It's yours. You have a trial period of 14 days here on most of the products, including the electronics, if sparingly used. If you don't like it, you can return it, right? Like the return rate is also very important, based on which the next product is designed. This kind of product is not being fit into the community. So there are a lot of product factors into the product lifecycle management, which cannot be taught in a day, which should be experienced in designing a product or being part of it. So if somebody asks you about a product lifecycle management, it's a life. You're talking about a whole life. So lifecycle management, people forget about getting the product to the market, but like the last part people forget is disposability of the product. Really forget about it. Like once you bought a product, you're not with it forever. right? Like you should show an exit plan on the product
Right.
to the customer. I bought an iPhone. That iPhone will be with me forever? No, like that's why I'm buying it on 24-month contract. Within 24 months, Apple is coming with 2 more iPhones.
Right. And it's interesting that you mentioned that because, the way products evolve and the rapid nature of agile these days when we talk about product delivery and product lifecycle, different are being pushed out by the organization because of in the strategic nature of understanding the market, how things are evolving. And when you look at as a product we're looking at professionals in the product space, we're looking at business analysts and agile delivery leads, where user stories are now very important. From a design perspective, who's telling the story and what story are we telling? And the story's got to resonate with the end users. And as a user, I want certain things to be available. I want certain features to be functioning, or speaking from the user's perspective versus just, rolling out a solution, the way it's been done traditionally in the waterfall age, where the business, and like Shivaram said, business will come back and say, hey, we no longer want this product. So again, there's a lot to unpack there. Product life cycle is not something we can cover here, but we do have a question from the participants, from the audience here, and the question is around how do you build confidence in an interview? I believe. Let me just make sure I'm reading correctly. So we have a question from one Ola. How do you overcome anxiety during your interview? I'm not sure anyone want to take this.
I can start, and others are more experienced. They can add on. Like I'll just share what I do. See, being anxious before an interview or any presentation, it's very normal. Okay, tell yourself it's normal. Even the interviewer who's gonna interview you, maybe at some point he or she was also nervous or anxious, so it's okay. Second thing, what I do before the interview, I don't overthink. Like I don't leave my preparation to the last moment. I don't overthink. I prepare well in advance. I practice and everything is done. Right before the interview, I never overthink about, oh, what will happen? How will it go? I listen to music. Like that's something that relaxes my mind, because if your mind is relaxed, your thoughts are clear and half of the battle is over. Trust me. And the final thing that I do is prepare a starting statement. It's like, just to start your mouth moving, like just to start the conversation. Say that you are nervous. It's okay. I mean, I do that in my interview. I say, hey, I'm really nervous. Okay. I say that because it's very normal to be nervous or anxious, right? So that's my little 2 cents about whoever is asking the question.
Yeah, I think that's some really great advice. I love the part about music. I always have a hype song, right? So what is that song that you put it on and you feel like you can conquer the world? You feel like anything that life throws at you, you can, overcome it. Play that song before your interview to get you in that right frame of mind. But I agree with Kagli, like prepare. Make sure that you prepare in advance, but then don't be preparing up until, right? Because sometimes what happens is because you've been preparing so much and you do it right up until that interview, sometimes that anxiety can make whatever you've just prepared feel like it's lost. So allow yourself a moment to be able to do something else, to take your attention away, to divert yourself from whatever it is. Maybe it is listening to that hype song, and then going into the interview feeling strong about who you are and being honest. If you're a little nervous, taking time, maybe, grabbing a glass of water, taking a pause, or even asking the question, right? So if they ask you, why do you want to join our team? Maybe start off with, well, one of the reasons why I would like to join your team, to kind of give yourself, as Kakali mentioned, some time to set yourself up into the question without having to dive into it right away. But everybody gets nervous. The more you practice, the more comfortable you get in doing multiple interviews, and also the more confident you are in your experiences. And that I've seen happen quite often. I've seen the difference between a candidate that was really confident in the skills and experiences they brought, and a candidate who wasn't as confident. Maybe they haven't worked in their field of study, or they haven't worked in the space. So they're bringing that lack of confidence to the interview, and sometimes it can show. So what I would say is, know that you've been asked to that interview for a reason. It's because those experiences that you've had, whether they are exactly the right fit, or if they have some synergies, has brought you to that point. So be confident in the experiences that you have. Be confident in what you have of value to offer. And don't let that be what is, holding you back in your interview.
And I want to add one more thing here, Rashida. If you are not nervous, if you are not anxious, that is not normal. That's abnormal. You should be anxious, you should be nervous. That is part of the interview, right? Like that should be positive. How I'm going to do, what I'm going to do. If you're anxious about these two things, nothing wrong. You're well prepared. So prepare yourself to a level that you know what you are going to do and how you are going to do. All your anxiousness is answered there. So the thing is, again, like as Rashida was saying there, like you have to be confident, right? Like you have to build your confidence. How you get that confidence is practice. Do a mock interview. Sit before a video. Just switch on your video. Do a selfie video, and like think like somebody is asking you, and talk to your wall. Otherwise, start practicing to your wall. I don't know how many of you are immigrants. You have to clear your English exam. If you take that selfie as an English exam, right? Like there will not be any person that you're talking to. You're talking to a computer. What people said me when I was giving that exam is there is nobody to talk to. You're pretending that you're talking to your wall, right? Like, okay, imagine like put 10 questions before you, how you answer that. That will build a lot of confidence in you. It's all practice. 1 or 2 interviews going long is nothing wrong, right? It all builds your confidence, but let them not also go wrong. It's all like how you prepare. More you prepare, less your fear. That's it.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for sharing, everyone. Again, I think that's all the responses has been perfect, and we're getting another one in the chat by Richard. Thanks for sharing. When it comes to being nervous, I think that's normal. I think the emotions that we feel when we're nervous and when we're excited are the same. We just have to channel the positive one, which is excitement. So when you feel like you're nervous in an interview, think that you're excited, and that's why you're feeling that way, because the similar emotions. Anyways, we will move on to the next round of questions. The next round, the first person, I'm going to start with you, Rashida. And this is about storytelling and getting our message across to people. Are there any hacks to keeping an audience engaged? I've heard people say, some people begin with, let me tell you a story, just to get people hooked. Does that have any effect in driving our message across to our desired audience?
Well, one thing I would definitely want to let your audience know is it's not about hacking anything. It's not about trying to get one over on anyone. Really, what I encourage you all to do is to be authentic. Right? Be authentic in how you articulate your message. Be authentic in how you share your experiences. You may want to start off with that story. You can use the wording that you've shared a day where you said, let me tell you about this experience that I had, or I recently had the worst interview possible, and let me tell you how I turned it into the most positive experience possible, right? So you may want to bring someone in by kind of, sometimes in storytelling, it can be a hook, right? We call it a hook of some sorts to really get someone as they're scrolling to want to stop on your page or to want to stop. So you may have something in there that brings them in, that reels them into your story. But ultimately, you want to be as authentic as possible. You don't want to embellish. You really want to stick to the experiences and what you've learned, but really come from a place of wanting to share what you've learned from that experience versus trying to hack or hook, or trying to get someone to buy into it. in any other means besides being authentic and being yourself.
Well, authenticity is extremely important. Being authentic with ourselves, being our authentic self is part of that. Again, bringing the full self to the table. And thanks so much for sharing, Rashida. I guess my next question will be to you, Kakali. And when we're looking at storytelling, in terms of balance when it comes to piecemeal and overstorying, people have talked about that. When you're with an audience, how do you find balance in storytelling? What are the effects of overstorying on our audience? How do we find balance between telling a piecemeal story versus overstorying?
Yeah, great question, Ade. So, as powerful as it is, storytelling is, overstoring can actually kill the purpose. That might just happen because, okay, you start nicely, your story is very interesting, you're actually going to deliver a great message, but if you can't construct your thoughts, or if you can't, put it in a nice flow, and you actually end up overstoring, you might not get the desired, result out of it, right? Because you lose the connection. And the moment you lose the connection with your audience and you are going all over the places, you won't get what you are actually looking for, right? So that's the impact of overstoring. Now, if I have to talk about the second part of your question, which is like balancing between a piecemeal and overstoring, I would say we can follow certain guidelines to make it a good storytelling exercise or an experience, right? So the first thing would be, I would say that your stories should be concise and compelling. And how you can make it concise and compelling? By clearing your thoughts in your mind. Spend time to think what you're going to say. What will be the key message that you're going to deliver? What will be the key element of your story? What you want to deliver to your audience? And then again, you can, if it's a long story, you can actually, put it in different parts, micro stories you can create within that story, so that, you have nice starting, nice flow, and nice connection with the audience. The second part would be the frame, like how you frame it. Like I said, you should have a starting statement, like give a trailer, when we decide to go for a movie, we see the trailer first, right? And if we see, oh, it's exciting, let me go for this movie. So your trailer, your starting statement is very, very important, because that's where you connect with the audience, and that's where you give an expectation to your audience. So that's another part before you actually unfold your main story. And the third important part would be unpacking. Unpacking is just like how we unpack when we come back from a trip, maybe from a holiday, right? We open our suitcase, we keep our laundry items somewhere, separately. Then the gifts that we bring, we keep them separately. So we sort them out separately, right? As per their category. So in terms of storytelling, unpacking would be sorting your thoughts into small pies. Now you go ahead and you then unpack your story slowly, one by one, into different small parts. And that's how I think a bigger or overstoring can be, balanced it out, and you get the most desired, outcome of it. That's what
Excellent. Well, thanks so much, Kakali. It sounds like we're talking agile here. As you're packing them into different chunks, which is really important. And the key, one of the things you mentioned is, make your story concise and compelling.
Yeah.
Clear your thoughts, and be sure what the key message is. I think sometimes, and I think one of the key things that you mentioned earlier is around practice.
Yeah.
Finding time to gather your, clear your thought, gather your thoughts, and know what it is you want to talk about. Now, it's really challenging because when we find ourselves in an interview or in a presentation or any sort of space where you're speaking, often we go out of tangent. We go on a tangent and we go out of scope. what we're going to talk about, it's easy to do that. But then when you have a structure or a framework of a thought process around the things you're going to talk about, and you break them in those little chunks, like you said, often, even though it might not necessarily flow in the order that we may have practiced, it gives us some framework to work with. Thanks so much for sharing. We will go to you next, Shivaram. Shivaram, this piece we're talking about here is around, you know, what is, ethical or unethical. Most times storytelling, good stories can evoke some emotions that causes our audience to act in a way that is favorable to us. Is there another form? Is that another form of manipulation? Is it ethical, unethical to manipulate our audience? Because again, if we're using storytelling to get what we want, because often when you even think about people put out content on social media, they want to capture people's attention. Is this considered another form of manipulation if for those that are really good at storytelling?
Oh yeah, let me answer this. I concur with Rashida on the authenticity here, right? Like your story is how authentic it is. Everybody knows. You can't bluff anybody in this world. You can bluff for a moment, but like you can't bluff for the next moment. You'll be caught. And especially the problem with not being authentic there, or the first thing is walk the talk and talk the walk, right? Like that is very important for being a true professional. If you're saying something, you should be at least able to practice it. Like, what are your hobbies in the story? Like, if you say, like, I run for 100 kilometers a day, is it believable? What do you do for the rest of the day? You sleep? I laugh for that things, right? Like, you have to say something which you do really, then you need not lie. And you need not remember so many things because you don't lie. If you lie, you have to remember so many things. I don't lie for a reason. I try not to lie. I don't lie is not possible. I try not to lie because I don't remember what I lied. Right? Like being authentic, and also uh, like as per the question, Adi, what you said is what are the two things that you have asked in the question? Apart from authenticity.
The question is around the fact that manipulation, telling good stories can evoke some emotions that causes our audience to act in a way that is favorable to us. Is this another form of manipulation? Is
Yeah.
Is it
ethical or unethical, right?
Yeah.
See, being as much as truthful is being ethical, first of all, right? Like being unethical, like if you think like if you are taking a $15 bill to an industry expert and asking for a change, they're ready to give you two $7.50 bills. Be prepared for that. That's being ethical, right? Like don't try to do anything unethical in an interview or anywhere you go in your world. That's what you have been told by your families as you grew up. That's what you have been told by your elders that as you have grown up. That's what is the workplace is. Be as ethical as possible, be as honest as possible, and manipulative, right? Like manipulation is again, it's a skill. It's a special skill than cracking an interview. I don't get there. I don't want anybody to learn manipulate people. You can manipulate a person for a while, but once the person is lost, you are also lost, right? Like if you are trying to do good together, you both will succeed. You need to create a win-win environment rather than trying to manipulate for the moment, right? Like if you want to get uh, a name or a fame as a good business person, a good to do with business person, or a manipulator. He's a manipulator. Like once in the industry, this Canada is so small. Trust me, you're in Canada. The market is so small. 8 years back, I knew 40, 30 people where I used to work. Right now, I know like a lot of vice presidents and senior vice presidents, right? Whom I work with, right? When I moved from bank to bank, I moved from Scotiabank to TD Bank to Citibank here, three banks, right? Like I have seen some or the other SVP here or there, again, I met in the other bank. So, like, you create an impression with people, and once you're out into the market and you truly grow up in your career, all the people is all you know, and you are also well known for what you are good at. You're good at good things, will give you a good result. You're good at manipulating, they'll also try to manipulate you. It's very fundamental. What you give is what you get. Try to be as authentic as possible.
Well, thanks so much, Shivaram. I agree. I think repetition is at stake when it comes to utilizing things like manipulating people. And I think it's important that as you shared, being authentic with our story. And in some cases, some people might ask, "Oh, can I just make up a story just because I want to navigate?" That's manipulation. Tell a story, and in some cases, just listen. There are times that we don't necessarily have to say a word. We just need to listen attentively. Thank you so much, Shivaram. We'll go to the last round of questions, and then we'll give the panelists the opportunity to share their final thoughts as we wrap up. As we're going to this last round of questions, I'm going to start with you, Rashida. And I'm going to switch it around a little bit. Some stories are so interesting, but lack the lasting effects on to generate the desired result. How best can we make our stories stick to our audience mind, memory, and then eventually, make decision that favors? What's the strategy here, Rashida?
Yeah, I think we've kind of said and thread this out throughout, and Kakali has mentioned this a few times: connecting and resonating, right? So when you are sharing a story, and sometimes you don't know what will connect and what will resonate in your experiences, but when you do bring that authenticity to it, when you are transparent, when you are vulnerable, people see that. People connect with that. And there's going to be some part of your story or some part of your experience that will resonate with whoever you are speaking with. And that will absolutely leave an impression on them. And I can tell you, like I shared with you earlier, a story about a candidate that I had. One of the reasons that I'm in talent acquisition today is because my storytelling resonated with someone who I had spoken with. And I was truly authentic in sharing my experience of having to knock on many doors, trying to transition from the banking space and banking world into talent acquisition, which wasn't an easy feat. And it was really the culmination of the experiences that I had, many of those doors shutting, that I said, and I looked at it, I could take this one of two ways. I can say, woe is me, nobody wants to hire me, I'm not good enough. Or I can say, maybe there's something in this system that needs to be reevaluated. Maybe there's something that we need to reconsider when it comes to giving opportunities and seeing the potential in that next generation of talent. And that's what I hooked myself in. That's the anchor that I used. And those were the experiences that anytime that I walked into a room and I would share my career story, I would share those lows of applying to over 100 positions, and can count on my hands how many callbacks I actually received with no second interviews, to overcoming that experiencing and then using that as a catalyst for me wanting to make change in the recruiting and talent acquisition industry. And I think the ability to want to make change, to take those negative experiences and turn it into something positive. And Richard, you mentioned that as well in your comment, right? Taking those experiences or challenges that we've been through and then repurposing it for something positive that then becomes a catalyst for why we want to grow our career in that space, why we feel compelled to want to be in this industry. Those things resonate with people. And even if they don't call you back tomorrow for a job, you'll be top of mind for them when that opportunity does come, because not only are you sharing that with them, but you are also consistently sharing your experiences and stories and helping others through your social media presence and through your online connection. So I would say those are the most important pieces, making sure that you're authentic, making sure that you connect and that you resonate, that you're really speaking to challenges and things that you've overcome, but that you're spinning it into something positive, and maybe that's the reason why you want to grow in the space that you want to grow in, and then consistently showing up online and in different, conversations as that person, and continuing to share your experiences, because you never know who it will connect and resonate with, and who will be that person to open the door for you.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Rashida. Lots to unpack there. Being transparent, connecting with people, being vulnerable is also part of the process. Because again, when we hide behind this wall, this character that we often build up, it doesn't allow us to connect with people, and it doesn't give us the free flow ability to connect with people. Thank you so much, Rashida. We're gonna keep going as we're trying to wrap up here, and I'm gonna go to you, Shivaram, and come back to Kali. Shivaram, if you can maybe just I guess a final question, and then also maybe some takeaways that you want to share with us. A lot of people have heard about the rise and fall of tones, engaging pauses, and even the release of chemicals such as oxytocin and dopamine by the human brain in response to good storytelling. Are there any systematic or scientific ways to storytelling?
Systematic way or the scientific way is getting a connect. There is, I want to say like a pragmatic way more than a systematic or scientific. The most pragmatic is getting a connect, right? Like, as again, like the essence of the whole today, the moral or the anecdote that everybody can take home is be as honest as possible in the storytelling. That will generate all the chemicals that are required for you to connect with, to build the chemistry between the person to whom you are telling the story, and for them to absorb and make a bond there, a chemical bond, and the equation balances there, right? Like, don't try to get the answers of simple questions from Google, right? Like, what are your weaknesses? I ask anybody. They say, like, I'm workaholic. That's the most common answer. You find it in the Google. That doesn't connect with me anymore because, like, it's most answered. But apparently, I'll tell you, a person who told me, like, what is your weakness and how did you come over it? Like I have asked. I get sleep in the afternoon meetings, which are between 2 and 3. Wow, I do get it as well. What did you do for that? It connected with me, really. After my lunch, I usually get it. So as soon as I do my lunch, I go for a brisk walk so that I sweat a bit. I wash my face inadvertently. That prevented me and slowly getting out into that schedule, put my sleep off from 2 to 3. That really connected with me than somebody saying me I'm workaholic and like I tend to work during the holidays. No, I don't want people working on the holidays. That is creating a ripple impact on my team and setting a wrong expectation on the other team member. So that is where you say the story, you connect. That is the chemistry that you need to build, right? Like that's the chemical balance that you need to have while you're telling your story or while you're telling. Again, and as a final saying, again, uh, at the end, like whatever Rashida said or whatever other panelists, anybody said, be as honest as possible, as truthful as possible. Try to connect as much as possible. Try to tell your story. Don't cook a story. If you cook a story, you can go nowhere. Like the questions that you come because you have experienced a story, you can tell it. And what you feel about a product as well. Like you tell it, you do your research. What is the comparable in the market? Prepare your slides, prepare your deck, do practice it, anticipate few questions and try to ready to be open to take the question back with you if you can't answer there. So if you can't answer a question while you're telling the story, you tell it like it's a good question, appreciate for the question, don't feel bad for it that you didn't answer it. Take it as an opportunity for you to learn. We are all continuous perpetual students who have been learning all the life, right? Like my grandfather is still learning something. I was so surprised when he said it. Yeah. make a research and don't cook a story. That is my anecdote of this.
Well, thanks so much, Shivaram.
Your permission, Nadi. Like I have to leave, as I told you. Like I have something. Yeah, you can continue this. I'll take any essence from this, but please record this chat and do send it in.
Absolutely. We do appreciate you taking the time and stopping by here, Shivaram. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. And we'll hope to have you back in the future. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay. I guess we're going to move on here. Again, there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to take away. Don't cook up a story. Be authentic. Be authentic. Be vulnerable. Connect with people. We talked about these things. We're going to go to you next, Kakali. And Kakali, as we're trying to wrap up here, you can share your final thoughts and key takeaways. This is one question for you is, what would you say to a nervous presenter you're coaching to convince them to use story? Most people are nervous. How do we, sometimes, people say there's some things that you have to say, to get the nerves out. Are there any ways, are there any tricks or ideas that you can share?
Well, Adi, I think we covered some of it when we were answering the question about being anxious during an interview, right? It's something similar. So we all get nervous. It's very common. Like today also before the session, probably I was a little nervous. And then you played that music and I was like, hey, we're ready. So like Rashida and we do listening to our favorite tunes, right? It really helps. Second thing, again, what I said is like, be well prepared, but don't keep your preparation to the last moment. Be well prepared, well in advance, practice, record yourself, listen to your presentation, look for, scope where you can probably improve, add those things and re-practice again, re-record again, so you can improve, right? Then again, the another thing is, like I said, it's important to connect with your audience. So decide what you're going to say in the beginning, like be honest, be authentic and own it. Whatever you were saying, just own it, be yourself. It's okay. You're a human being and you are talking to some human beings as well. So that's okay to be nervous. And if possible, what I normally do is, I start in a lighter note because it helps me to build up that whole, emotion or that confidence. Once I deliver my first sentence in a lighter note, once I let my mouth moving, I go into that flow. So practice, listen to your recordings, and then before the presentation, just relax, sleep well. I think Richard mentioned in the chat, sleep well, exercise, do things that you want to do, that gives you mental peace and you're relaxed. So do that. Don't overthink. So that's something I'll definitely advise to a person who is nervous before a presentation. And I think you also asked me about my key takeaways, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, that's correct.
So the key takeaways, the first one will be definitely being authentic, because when you're authentic, it's your story. You own it. And you'll tell it in a way that you can definitely connect with your audience. So connection, being authentic, and also using critical thinking to your storytelling is important because it helps you to, give a flow of your thoughts. So that's important. And finally, most importantly, and finally, connect with your audience. That's the most important thing.
Oh, excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Kakali. We're really grateful to have you on the call and for all the great things you've got to share. Again, lots to take away. I'm taking notes here, guys. I'm learning along the way. I know, Rashida, I'm not sure if we gave you the opportunity to share your key takeaways. If you want to quickly share some of the key takeaways you have for the audience today.
Yeah, so one key takeaway that I think that I would love for you all to keep in your back pocket is, no matter where you are on your career journey, whether you are just starting out, whether you just moved to this country, whether you are transitioning to a new space, or you're seasoned in your career, know that you have something to offer. Know that your experiences are valid and they are valuable. And never shy away from what makes you and what has made you who you are. Oftentimes, and I know Ade, you mentioned that early on, we try to fit into the box, right? We want to say all the right things. We want to be the ideal candidate. We don't want to stand out. We want to fit in, especially when you're coming to a new country where your name, your accent, your complexion, all of those things may already make you stand out. So you're thinking to yourself, I don't want my career to make me stand out. I just want to just fit in with everyone. Know that all of those experiences, all of what makes you who you are, those are what's going to make you stand out in the candidate pool, but also make you stand out as a potential candidate. So find a way to harness those things. Find a way to see the positive in all of what you bring to the table, and don't be unapologetic about who you are and what you have to give. And the value you have to bring.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Rashida, for that powerful message. And I'm confident that message resonates with me. I'm sure it resonates with a lot of folks on the call as well. This has been an amazing session. We are very grateful for the participants, and we're grateful for the panelists for sharing with us today this exciting, this very, very important topic. Any good thing comes to an end. Again, this has been an exciting session. We're very grateful to the panelists for sharing their wealth of experience, and we're grateful for the participants. I know Kakali shared earlier that on a summer afternoon, getting folks to be on the call, we're grateful. We're not taking that for granted. This is our monthly PM Roundtable, and our goal is to use this platform to facilitate professional networking, to share information, present opportunity for career growth, and essentially raise leaders. And we certainly hope today's session has helped further that agenda. My name is Ade Adeyemi. I'm the CEO at Ole Consulting. As you know, we're a management consulting firm specializing in IT professional services in the areas of staffing, training, and project delivery services. So we do connect IT professionals to opportunities within the industry, and we also provide training and employment placement services for individuals that are looking to get into the fields of project management and business analysis. We want to thank all the audience. You can reach out to us on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. We'd love to hear from you. Again, today's roundtable has been excellent. We're grateful to the panelists and all the participants. On that note, on behalf of the entire Ole Consulting team, we'd like to thank you and we wish you well. I guess we'll say be well, stay safe. Until next time, bye for now.